Thank you, Chair. I'm going to read tonight a couple of short prayers from the Iona community. It's a multi-denominational Christian community campaigning for justice and peace throughout the world, of which I'm a member, proud to be a member. I'll have a pause between both of those, and I think they're appropriate for the kinds of things we'll be discussing this evening. Jesus told great stories. They helped people make sense of their lives. They revealed God in ordinary things. They encouraged and changed people. Make us more ready to share our stories. Give us words when we are tongue-tied, confidence to know that our stories matter, tact to know the right place to tell them, and most importantly, make us ready to listen. Living God, as we address the business before us, grant us wisdom and insight, sensitivity and tolerance. Help us to listen carefully to one another's views and to think before we speak. And when we come to decide the way ahead, may we be blessed with courage and imagination and the hope that comes from you. Amen.
So a formal good evening and welcome to everybody. Can I first of all ask if there are any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillors Booker, Sylvester Hall, Hawkins and Ms Woodward.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor White. And Councillor Ray had... Councillor Harvick-Coggins. Okay. Thank you. Right. Thank you. Item 2, are there any declarations of interest? Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 3 then is to, can I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of July 2024 are a correct record? Anybody? No, I can't see anybody objecting. So can we take those minutes as approved? Okay. Thank you. Item 4 then is the Chair's announcements. I'll just, I won't hold us up very long. I just wanted to make a couple of points, perhaps 3 points. We'll be coming on to the next item after this, to the Cabinet decisions from the meeting on the 30th of July. At that meeting, the Cabinet decided to get rid of the matrix, and they also decided not to adopt the point system that had been worked out by the task force. It also asked for a written record of, given this unusual freedom of what the chair might have got up to between council meetings. There's been a bit of sort of miscommunication between myself and others, but what I think is an accurate record is the type sheet that was circulated today. I just wanted to say a couple of points on it. I'm quite good at my ambassadorial role, i.e. going round to other people's civic events in very nice parts of Staffordshire, and I do quite a lot in Lichfield. I'm welcome in Fradley, or at least in St Stephen's Church, and I have been in Burntwood this afternoon. But it is a very Lichfield focused set of activities. So if anyone wants to invite me to Faisley or Hill Ridware or Kings Bromley, I'd be very happy to go. So I just want to say that. The second point I wanted to say is that given that I, have a certain amount of freedom, I've decided to revive the not so ancient tradition begun months ago by Councillor Checkland and former Councillor Greatrix, of joining with the Mayor of Lichfield for a Christmas carol event, to which everyone is welcome. By equally ancient tradition, it seems to always coincide with a meeting of the Cabinet, which is not, must be deliberate because it always does so. But we're going to sing our carols slowly, and there should be mulled wine and mince pies ready for any members of Cabinet or the people who I understand go and watch the Cabinet if they would like to come along later. So there'll be a carols for Christmas jointly by the Chair and the Mayor of the City of Lichfield on the 3rd of December, to which you're all welcome. Finally, I want to say the collecting box for my charity, MHA Living Later Well, is outside if anyone's got any money to spare. I'm still looking into how I raise money for a charity, but I'll do my best. So thank you for that indulgence, and I hope you read my list with interest. Councillor Cross. No, that's another thing I'm thinking about. I met a very nice man at the Count who was not from my political party, but was from the cathedral, who has almost persuaded me to have a civic service, but the administrative arrangements are somewhat of a mystery to me, but I live in hope. Right, can we move on then to, if there's no other comments, item 5 is the report of the leader of the council on Cabinet decisions from meetings of the 30th of July, 10th of September and the 8th of October. Councillor Pullen.
Chair. So we can get my microphone working. Thanks so much, and it's wonderful to be able to read in detail around all the events that you've attended around the district. That's a much welcome addition, I think, to this council. Thank you. I'm pleased to present this report the Leader of the Council on Cabinet decisions from the meetings held on the 30th of July, the 10th of September and the 8th of October, and Cabinet member decisions. I'll take them as usual by meeting. So first of all, Cabinet decisions on the 30th of July. 1, disabled facilities grants, year 1.
Yeah, I think Councillor Evans, then Councillor Cox for item 1.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an improved service after a number of years of failure by other providers, as we know. But there is obviously still improvements. We can always improve in anything we do, but we need to ensure that people are aware of the service as soon as possible. And we also need to ensure that applications are dealt with swiftly. As I know, the length of time people were waiting, it was a major problem. And we really need to improve upon that. And that's pertinent because there are a great need for people who want to remain in their own homes to be given the opportunity to do so. And unless their grants are done fairly quickly, then they will not have that opportunity, some of them. And I also think that it's important that we as councillors are updated on future progress and improvements, which we have been, but it needs to continue. Because the facility will continue to develop and people's needs will continue to change as well. But I do note that later on in the agenda, the injection of extra cash of 169,000 from the Better Care Fund should actually help us with that, because we know that with an elderly population, there are a lot of people that are needing support, and also for younger people as well who are needing facilities grants, because we can't assume it's always the older people that need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want Councillor Cox, is this on the same? What?
Sorry, I do apologise. Administering and facilitating the grants to residents on behalf of the council has been a success. It's
Could
this
bet on
year,
that.
148 adaptations were approved, with a total of £1.3 million to spend on those adaptations. This is a positive result, and I think we have to welcome it as going forward as an actually beacon for the county and surrounding areas as well, because this is, to me, from taking the service on, is a phenomenal success, and I'm hoping that the leader would agree with that.
Right. Well, let's see if he does.
It may come as no surprise to anyone in this chamber that yes, I do agree. It's been a tremendous success, Councillor Cox, and thank you for reiterating that point. We, as an organisation, as many other local authorities up and down the country, have really struggled to get these grants out and to the people who need them most. That is a nationwide picture that I'm really, really pleased that we've been able to change here in Lichfield District through the trading company, through Lichfield West Midlands Trading Services. And to Councillor Evans' point, I think I would wholeheartedly welcome the opportunity to report back regularly to members, not only about the successes, but about the challenges as well. It is an incredibly complex piece of work, particularly where we have to liaise with occupational therapists and where we're working with people who need these facilities grants. It is a complex piece of work, but I think what we've done through the trading company has demonstrated that where there's a will, there really is a way, and actually the reduced amount of capital slippage every year, which means that it's in people's houses, ensuring that they can stay in their homes for longer, is not only a testament to the council, it's a testament to the trading company as well. And I wholeheartedly endorse your points as well, Councillor Evans. Thank you.
Right. Okay.
No further questions. I can
No, that one, yeah.
carry on that. Number 2 is Money Matters 23-24 financial monitoring.
Is that on the agenda anyway?
Number 3 is Procurement Matters Update 23-24. Number 4 is the MTFS. 5 is a civic. There we go, the civic matrix. I'll sit down, Chair. I'll
Okay,
take them all
sorry,
together if you see fit. Thank you.
Councillor Norman, Councillor Sadler, Councillor Ball and Councillor Cross.
Well, in my case, all I want to do is actually give a bit of context to the work that the task group did. The first task group we had in this district council was in 2006. The first task group regarding the chairman at the time, and the chauffeur and the civic car, that was in June 2015. It was agreed at that meeting that it would go to Cabinet. It didn't. It was agreed that it would be reviewed in a year's time. It wasn't. 8 years later, we did review it. I was chairing the scrutiny meeting at the time. I can't remember who chaired it previously, but anyway, it was, after 8 years, we've actually got there somewhere. And so I just wanted to put the record there that it wasn't something new there, and the people did have as much time as they wanted to speak on it at overview and scrutiny, had it not been for paddle tennis taking up all the time unnecessarily. So I just want to put that on record there, and I'm glad I did invite past chairs to submit their views to that task group, so that the members of the task group then could actually be better informed and make better decisions. What happened after that is a matter for a record. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Norman. Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank Cabinet for making the decision that they've arrived at in removing the restrictive part of the matrix and the point scoring and all the rest of it. I was chair at the time that that system was imposed on us, and it caused a great deal of upset within the, as we all refer to, the chain gang. So I'm glad to see the back of it, to be quite honest. It makes sense to use common sense rather than restrictions. Thank you.
Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chair. I must say I also agree that the matrix was a real pain during my time as Vice and Chair, and it's very pleased to see that's gone. I'm sure you're going to find it much easier to work with. I'm happy to see 5152 and 53. I'm concerned it says about the Chair and Vice Chair's budgets. This was something that I also had great difficulty with. It's been amalgamated now, which I think is probably the right thing to do, because there is a big difference between the two, but it doesn't say what the budget is now. And I think for your sake, you need to know what that budget is going forward. And 5.4, the other one is about the budget for clothing. I don't know how ever overview and scrutiny has come up with this figure of £200. You know, in my experience, you need a suit for the summer, you need a suit for the winter, and you need a coat. And unless you go to a charity shop, you've got no chance of getting that for £200. Plus your consort as well will need clothing. So there's a nought or something missing off that, in my opinion.
Saying nothing. Councillor Bull.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Having given up a couple of hours my holiday to join that task group over Zoom, I am somewhat disappointed that the Cabinet rejected the point system, because I thought it was something that was worth considering. Having said that, I think I'm pleased to see the Cabinet's approved all the other recommendations that we made. But I wonder the necessity of having this list of all the chair's sessions published here. Why not just on the website? Because it's published here, somebody might pop up and ask questions, but why did the chair go here, there and everywhere, which could take up our precious time on things that are perhaps not as crucial as what we want to be discussing these evenings. Thank you.
Any other comments? No. I guess we're accepting it as it is.
Chair, if I could perhaps come back on a couple of points that have been raised. The two that I've picked up on are the issue around the budget for clothing and around the publication ask around events attended to. I think in terms of the budget for clothing, I think that was accepted as an appropriate level. I would entirely accept, though, that we would never want to prevent anybody from undertaking that role because they felt they didn't have appropriate clothing. And I think if that case were to ever arise, we'd deal with it at the time. I think the committee felt that was an appropriate level, but clearly, I think we'd all recognise what we'd absolutely not want to happen is somebody feel they couldn't take up the role because they didn't have appropriate clothing. I'm sure we deal with that on a case-by-case basis. I think in terms of the publication of events, Councillor Ball, I think for me, it's a transparency issue. I think we're all grown-ups, we're all elected. The chair is elected to their position, and frankly, they should be the ones to decide which events they attend and which one they don't. I think it gives an element of reassurance. They say that sunlight is the best disinfectant, and I think an element of transparency always assists in good decision making. I think whether it's reported at the full council pack, whether it's put on the website, if I'm really honest, I'm entirely agnostic about where that happens. I just think there ought to be a requirement around transparency to ensure that where public money is being spent, we know where it is being spent, but then actually accept the share in an elected position and trust them to attend the events that they think are worthwhile attending. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Shall I carry on?
Carry on, yeah, carry on.
Thank you.
Yes,
Right.
of course.
Number 6, Staffordshire Leaders Board terms of reference. Number 7, Joint Waste Service Fleet Procurement. Then on to the Cabinet decisions from 10th September 2024. Number 8, Money Matters 23-24. Number 9, LWM Annual Report 23-24.
Right, so, sorry, Councillor Ray and then Councillor Ball.
Yeah, thank you. You're just on number 9 about the trading company. The point I've made in ONS before is positive. Generally, what this trading company is doing disability facilities to grants is one example, planning services is another one. But the point I've expressed is just caution about scaling up so that if we're scaling up to self-services to other public bodies. So we have agreed in ONS that there will be scrutiny of the trading company twice a year, and I'm sure the leader would welcome that as a good move.
I think Councillor Ball, is it the same? It's the same item.
Thank you, Chair. No, it's the same item, yes. We discussed at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee the idea of co-opting other people onto the board. I know that's coming up later as a question, but I did promise the Labour Group leaders, Councillor Woodward, that I'd raise this evening, so I'm doing so. And I just wonder whether we can have assurance that if there are other appointments, they'll be from the opposition benches rather than from the controlling benches. So in a balanced council, we have a balanced membership of those boards. Thank you.
Councillor Pullen.
Thank you, Chair. And Councillor Ray, yeah, absolutely fully welcome the opportunity for the trading committee to be scrutinised at least twice a year, whilst no doubt around the year as well. In terms of Councillor Ball's point, which I think one of the questions has been submitted, it addresses that exact point. I think full council should absolutely be able to have an input on who those board members are. It's important that the board is robust, that it's broad enough to represent this council's views, whilst being agile and fleet of foot enough to act as a commercial interest. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think then it's.
I should probably stay stood up.
Yeah, I should
Right,
stay
apologies,
standing
Chair.
up. Yeah.
Number 10, city centre pedestrianisation, and then on to cabinet decisions.
Yeah,
from
hang on.
Damn it.
Yeah, Councillor Braga.
Welcome, but I do note that there are several issues that still need sorting out to be a good pedestrianisation, like the taxi ranks, dropping off points to people who are less mobile but don't have blue badges, and all the traffic that goes around the Market Square to Ball Street, and which is mentioned in here. So while we very much welcome it, I think it is a work in progress, and there's much more needs to be done.
Thank you.
Chair, I wouldn't disagree at all with Councillor Braga's points. I think sometimes in local government we're in danger of trying to plan everything to the nth degree, and by the time we get there, everything's changed anyway. So I'm always a fan of getting out there and starting and making improvements, but fully accept your point that there are some things that still need to be ironed out. I know that Councillor Sylvester Hall is in particular working on the taxi rank issue and around dropping off points around the city as well.
Thank you. Right.
On to cabinet decisions from the 8th of October 2024. Number 11 is the local plan issues and options.
Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. Leader, I just wondered if you would share with me the way that the issues and options document has been put together. The officers have done a fantastic job on this. I think it will make the public able to respond. It's very clear. It's a very complicated matter that the team have really done a fantastic job. And I just wished if you would echo that, please, officially to the staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehouse. Yeah, absolutely would echo that sentiment. I think local plans, I think, as I said, perhaps at overview and scrutiny, that the local plans at this stage are incredibly boring, quite frankly. They are dry documents that not very many people get involved in. And so the trick that officers have to do is to make something that's quite mundane and dry and technical, to make it interesting now, so that residents are involved now and not in 10 years' time, when the manifestation of that local plan becomes apparent as planning applications go in and as diggers move into areas by where they live. That's an incredibly difficult task to make that interesting. And I think actually officers have taken that technical and complex matter and made it interesting to our residents, which I really hope any of us who are on city, town or parish councils or who attend surgeries or wherever we are in our communities are able to engage our residents in that process now, so they really do feel like they have a voice and help to shape the future of our district.
Okay.
We may move on, Chair. Thank you. Number 12 is the Staffordshire's net zero planning policy commitments.
Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. I feel as though I just need to make reference here to the fact that I know that there's about 40 of us in this room, 39 of whom probably subscribe to the net zero climate emergency situation. I wish to be put on record that I don't. I really think that this country has to take stock of this situation. The costs of net zero as it stands at the moment, particularly under the Labour government proposals, will be quite ruinous. And I think also the net zero plans probably for Staffordshire will be, if not ruinous, extremely expensive. And I really think that we need to relook at this, because I do feel as though there is a degree of zealotry which underpins climate zero. And I just think the costs are going to be completely unaffordable. And it's the taxpayers of this district and of the county who will have to pick up the bill for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I thought Councillor Paul Taylor wanted, I think, perhaps we won't have a long debate on it, but.
No, thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Marshall's views are already on record numerous times. I wish to put on record that the majority view in this hall, I think, is to the exact opposite, and the head in hands reactions from some of his closest colleagues when he stood up to stand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure it's a matter of public record, I think. So item 13.
Thank you, Chair. Infrastructure funding statement at number 13. On to number 14 is the MTFS. And then on to cabinet member decisions. Number 15, the ICT help desk contract. Number 16, allocation of 106 funding to support pitch provision in Burntwood. Number 17, the Lichfield.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Wilcox, didn't see you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to congratulate the Cabinet Member for Operational Services, Parks and Waste, for this cash injection into Burntwood. I know it will go down well with the people in Burntwood who have long waited for this to take place. So I thank you for the financial contribution into as my county division. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Norman wants to echo that, disagree with that.
No, I just wanted to say that submission doesn't fool anybody in Burntwood.
Councillor Mears.
Well, we got.
Regarding item 16, I would like more information on what the money's being spent on and how the local population, the residents there, have been involved in the process. I've had quite a lot of complaints about the installation of the netting for the football pitch at Burntwood Park. And I want it noted, strongly noted, that the residents need a lot more inclusion in what's going on rather than being kept isolated with a lack of information.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
Just taking that point there, I think the detail around where the allocation of that 106 funding is there at number 16. I can't give any more detail about that this evening. I do know that ward councillors were spoken to and that the cabinet member was spoken to as well, but accept your point about greater resident engagement. If we can move on then, Chair, on to item 17, Lichfield District Council Productivity Plan 2024. Which I should put on note that I wasn't happy about producing. Number 18, the annual garden waste subscription charge amendment. Number 19, the awarding contract for the development manager role to cover Reba stages 5 and 6 for the new leisure centre. Number 20, to award the contract for the construction of a new leisure centre and associated landscaping works. 21.
Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. At apparently it was a meeting of the Leisure Centre Task Group a few weeks ago where significant issues were discussed. That's still a confidential item. And I'm just wondering whether that will come before us, either the Overview and Scrutiny Committee or at full council, before any final decisions are made on that, please.
Councillor Ball, I'm going to do something very rare and say to you, I don't know. And I'm going to update you by email if that's okay. I don't know the answer to that. Sorry. 21, HNDU detailed project development for the heat network. Number 22, the supply and installation of bollards for the pedestrianisation of Lichfield City Centre. Number 20.
Councillor Braga.
Bollard, again, I think that's welcome. Is the costings there, presumably that doesn't include the control room, does it? And if it does, is it going to be an in-house? Because, you know, these 24-hour control, or is that a separate item?
Thank you, Councillor Braga. It does not include the control room element of that. There are multiple items that frankly I would like to bring in-house. Lots of things. The pay on exit that we have introduced and plan on rolling out to more car parks will need a 24/7 control room. We know that there are other items such as the CCTV which require control room. The bollards will require a control room. There's an element of work going on at the moment to understand what we need to stand up operationally to be able to support that. So we have an interim measure in place, but longer term, the expectation is that we will have a fully functional 24/7 control room, which doesn't just look after the bollards, but looks after a number of other items that we have in the city centre. Thank
I
you.
think Councillor Cross had a comment on this.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I'd like to go back to item 18. Leader, please.
To stand up.
Yes, I
Yes.
apologise, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Has the increase on the garden waste, has that been agreed yet? It sort of reads as though it has been agreed, but there's no figures here. And is there going to be a charge for the food waste when that comes in on top of this?
Right, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, go on, do you mind answering that?
Chair, if you are
Yeah.
willing to indulge Councillor
Yes,
Cross,
yeah,
then so am I.
Yeah.
Councillor Cross, the way that we've decided to approach garden waste last year was that there will be an annual increase in line with CPI, which will be then rounded up or rounded down to the nearest 50p. So what that means is that there won't be the toing and froing each year at full council about where exactly that number should be set. We just accepted that as a council, it ought to reflect CPI each year. That gives certainty for this council, gives an element of certainty for our residents as well. So yes, the decision has been made. It was made last year that it would continue to rise in line with CPI. In terms of food waste, the food waste service that central government are requiring us to commit to will not present any direct cost to the resident in terms of it being set out as an individual cost. Of course, ultimately, we'll all bear the cost of it, but in an indirect way, in that we'll be receiving new burdens funding from the government to help support that service of when we start food waste collection, but it won't be a separate cost to our existing waste collection service. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think we're then on to 23, aren't we?
Don't want to stand up or sit down now. Right,
Yeah.
23. Right, let's go to that. 23 is the on-demand transport project. 24.
Hang on, no, sorry. There's Councillor Ray and then Councillor Paul Taylor.
Are we on item 23?
Yeah.
Yes, with item 20, the on-demand transport. We're glad to see this initiative. As we know, bus connectivity is crucial in our district. The different parts of our district aren't connected by rail, so buses are absolutely crucial. And our group is really glad to see this initiative because our group has long said, what can the district council do to intervene and try and improve the bus services in our district? So this is a start. So thank you for that. Obviously, we're interested to see how it develops, in particular for those further flung rural areas and how that's going to work. But and could I ask the leader, the trial needs to be meaningful for a meaningful period. How long will that be initially?
Right, perhaps if we take Councillor Taylor, then you can answer them together.
Thank you, Chair. The leader will recall that I have asked him, or I think one of my colleagues told me I'd badgered him. I'm not sure it goes that far on the issue of public transport, particularly in relation to Burntwood and the rural areas in our district, and a number of times, and that I implored him, despite the regular answer, that it was a county council issue, to find ways in which the district council could improve the transport. I'm glad to see Cabinet has taken my requests to heart and started to make some small moves in that direction. And I hope we can see further Cabinet decisions along these lines in future.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Pullen, I think there was a question from.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll take Councillor Taylor's point first. And thank you so much for your badgering, Councillor Taylor. I fully appreciate it. I think, but I would stand by my comments that the county council ultimately bear the responsibility for transport across the county. I think this decision to invest in the on-demand transport reflects Lichfield District Council's increasing confidence and ambition in delivering a range of services for our residents that we are not required by statutes to deliver, but actually as councillors, I'll include all of us from right across the chamber, are willing to see us bring forward as part of our precepts and deliver for our residents. So I'd fully welcome your continued badgering and ensuring that we allow our residents to move around the district and ultimately support our economy. In terms of the councillor Ray's point about how long it's going to last for, it will carry on to the end of the financial year. So we need to spend the UK SPF money. It's funded by our UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and we need to spend all of that by March. The pilot will run until then, at which point we'll reflect and see whether A, we wish to see it continue, and B, whether we have an appropriate revenue stream to fund that going forward.
Right.
Thank you, Chair.
24.
24, delivering temporary accommodation for vulnerable adults and families.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to commend the council on this decision. As we approach the winter months, it's getting colder. At any one time, 32 local people are living in temporary accommodation in our district. And as a council, we approximately spend £80,000 a year on temporary accommodation, and that amount's rising every day. So I'm really pleased to see this investment into newer temporary accommodation across our district. Hopefully they'll be ready by Christmas, and we hope that people will be moving in within 6 months. So I'm really pleased to see that we're bucking the trend when it comes to this and supporting local people who are going through tough times in a housing crisis when they suffer homelessness. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that concludes, I think. Yeah, so
Please, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we move on then to item 6, the minutes of the overview and scrutiny committee. So I call on Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. Now, with your permission, I'll amend the script to say that I move that the proceedings of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting held on the 23rd of July 2024 be received.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that?
Oh, we have, yeah.
You have?
Go on, you said you would.
No, do we have a seconder for this thing? Yeah, thank you, Councillor Harrier. We probably need someone who was present, right? Okay, then you'll take us through the minutes then, Councillor Norman.
Under Lord Cittrin's ABC of chairmanship, you do not have to be present to move or second anything like that. But moving
Well, I
on.
stand corrected, but
Thank you.
Seems
Present,
logical to me.
Present, 10, sorry. Apologies for absence. 11 declaration of interest. 12 minutes of the previous meeting. 13 public involvement in scrutiny.
Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chair. I'll ask a question, which I tried to ask at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, but was disallowed. So I raised at the previous meeting the request on the link to the website to allow members of the public to submit proposed topics to members for scrutiny. We're trying to encourage local community to get more involved in scrutiny. I think having that, I did look on the website today, couldn't find it anywhere. So maybe it's hidden somewhere, but it needs to be more prominent. And I just wonder whether there'll be some progress made in that direction, please, and when we're likely to know. Thank you.
I'm confident there will be progress, although I haven't found any yet, because I couldn't find it either. But there's one or two things you can't find sometimes on the website, and I've made suggestions on one or two other things. So yes, thank you for that reminder. And I'm sure there's somebody in this room that's making notes at this very moment, and will get back to me tomorrow probably. 14, scoping for the new health task group. Can I just say I'll be emailing for volunteers very soon. We've got various subjects or various issues to look at, but we'll need volunteers for that and try and keep it party broad and area broad. So hopefully we'll get some volunteers who are willing to put in the work to do that. Number 15, the verbal debrief on the general election, which I'm very grateful for, quite soon after the election, but I wanted to get some feedback on that and other feedback members can get from the Electoral Commission. It was professionally done, this report. It didn't, I'm surprised to say, but I know it's a professional report. It didn't say how glad they were with the result, which I suppose is fair enough at the end of all that. 16, disabled facilities grants and the year one review. That's quite a few members asked quite a few questions on that. And, that's been covered, so good, no questions. On the 17, there's the update on the climate emergency from the cabinet member, sorry, Councillor Marshall. I'm glad to say that the dashboard now, at last, after a long time, is on the website. You can find easily, and other documents on there. It's up to scrutiny, and all of us really keep to monitor what's happening with the climate and what we're doing to help that climate change issues. 18 was health matters. I think I'll be at the next, due to the refusal to allow me to babysit, I'll be at the next health scrutiny committee in Stafford. And 19 is the work programme, which it did worry me until I saw this, because I thought, have I got the wrong minutes here? Because Councillor Paul Ray was referring to the LWMTS, and anyway, it was in the work programme when he raised it. So thank God I did find I've got the right minutes. That's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ball, I think, has a comment or a question.
Thank you, Chair. The very last item, we know that community safety is a really important issue for our residents. There was supposed to be a report at the October meeting on the Community Safety Partnership. We didn't get that. I'm just wondering when that will be happening, because we really need to know that the Community Safety Partnership, I think Councillor Cox in a request from Councillor Woodward last December said he was going to beef it up and get it sorted. We're still waiting to hear about progress, so I'm hoping we'll get something on that very soon too.
Does Councillor Cox want to, or just?
Thank you. At the that meeting, it was agreed that we would bring a report to the December meeting. And just to inform council, I really am at the moment trying to restructure the way that the Community Safety Partnership is. It has taken longer than I really anticipated, but we are making real headways now, and that is why we're certainly in a position to bring a report in December to the next meeting and brief ONS and council where we are with it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor Norman. We're now on to item 7. So I call on Councillor Banavicius to introduce the minutes of the Employment Committee, to move the minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the proceedings of the Employment Committee held on the 27th of June 2024 be received and where necessary approved and adopted.
Do we have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Okay, so I'll take you through them briefly. Apologies for absence. Declarations of interest, minutes, the gender pay gap, the pay policy. That's it. No questions. Okay. Right. We move on then to item number 7. No, sorry, item number 8. So I can call on Councillor Harvey Coggins. I forgot to move. Have we agreed the minute? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Councillor Harvey Coggins, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the proceedings of the Planning Committee meetings held on the 29th of July 2024 and the 2nd of September 2024 be received and where necessary approved and adopted.
Do we have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Okay, so we go through those pay by page. So page 27 has apology. Sorry, Councillor Wilcox, sorry. On page 27.
Thank you, Chair. I cannot let the minutes of this particular planning meeting pass without making reference to one of the applications. There have been very few applications over the year where the public are so incensed and so concerned that they have taken it upon themselves to turn up in large numbers to show their feelings and to ensure that we as elected members sit up and take notice. Warner Avenue in Fradley was one of those cases. not new to this planning committee. In fact, the refusal had already been made some years earlier and subsequently supported by the planning inspector. But the persistent developer had once again tried to get this application through following much debate and officer time in doing their best to persuade everyone that this housing development could be achieved within this extremely tight existing
Sorry,
housing
Councillor
layout.
Fox, I'm just a bit uneasy about, this is a sort of statutory legal committee. People, the application has been refused, and I think we should just be, I think we should just be very careful what we say.
I'm not talking about I'm not going to talk about the application, Chair. I just want to make comment on the way in which that meeting was conducted.
Well, if you can be quickly. Do
Okay. But I do want to put on public record the professional way in which our officers place the proposals before members. I also want to thank our members for their forthright questioning of officers, and in particular, the challenge made in regard to the many highway issues and concerns. I know how grateful the residents are with the decision that was reached, and many commented to me on how they felt members diligently went through and looked at every aspect of this application. I have publicly thanked the residents who took the time to attend and witness real democracy in action. The decisions we take here are not always what our residents want, but they do expect us to be rigorous and challenging, and a debate by elected members taken forward.
Can I?
Which clearly demonstrate, Chair, I'm coming to the final bit of it. Finally, what enables all this to happen is having a good planning chair. In this case, the new planning chair, Councillor Harvey Coggins, who acted with great patience and professionalism amidst at times quite a vocal audience in the public gallery. Chair, history tells us that we need to make sure that in all of these situations where the public are in touch with us in the public gallery, we do what we do as a council and act with true democracy in all cases. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to dissent from praise for Councillor Harvey Coggins, but I think we do need to be careful with these, how we deal with planning minutes. But anyway, we're on to page 30. I think we're on to the next meeting then. The 2nd of September 2024, page 31. I'm sure that all went smoothly as well. Okay. So we can accept the minutes of planning committee. Thank you. So we're on to item 9, minutes of the audit committee. Can I call on Councillor Paul Taylor?
Thank you, Chair. Just before I move the minutes, can I take a moment just to note that this meeting was very nearly not quorate. I know the audit committee is not the most exciting of our committees, but if I could implore those members of the committee who are able to attend as often as they could. That said, I move the minutes. I move that the proceeding of the audit committee meeting held on the 18th of July be received and, where necessary, approved and adopted.
Can I have a seconder? Councillor Byrne.
I second that.
Thank you very much. So we go through apology. Oh, right, okay. Councillor Salt.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just an observation. Under present, there are certainly one omission. Our own Anthony Thomas was present, but not mentioned as an officer, or no other names mentioned. I don't know whether anyone else was there.
Okay, right.
So perhaps that's just
yes,
amending.
actually, you're right, isn't
Thank you.
it? There were officers clearly present. And was it Councillor Smith behind? And then.
Thank you, Chair. One of the reasons why there was so few at the audit committee was that there was another committee that clashed on the same night. I was on both committees. I can't be in two places at once.
Right, and I think Councillor Marshall was going to make the same point. Yeah, so we need to look at that sort of clashing and committees. Okay, thank you very much. So the annual Treasury Management Report, the SIPFA, if that's how you say it, resilience on page 2, procedure rules, audit, quality assurance, risk management. It's all very important, isn't it? Okay, no questions, right. Then we can take those minutes also as received and adopted. Thank you. Now we come on to the item 10, the minutes of the Regulatory and Licence Committee, and call on Councillor Evans, please.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the proceedings of the Regulatory and Licensing Committee held on the 25th of July 2024 be received and where necessary approved and adopted.
And can we have a seconder for that? Councillor Salter, thank you. So then we go page 37, housing standards, food delivery. Page 38, dog control. And page 38, 39, taxis, gambling. What? Councillor Ray, taxis or gambling?
Yes. I just wanted to talk about item 7 about the taxi policy. As members know, I take an active interest in the taxi policy and the service in our community. It is a crucial service for our community. And I just wanted to say thank you to the officers who are working on the policy. That is a new policy that is shaping up well. So thank you very much for the work that's been done. And also I just want to thank officers and other people from the council. One of the challenges, as we all know, with the licensed taxis, those taxi drivers who pay a license fee to be able to park on the rank here in Lichfield, is Uber drivers. And they hover around the rank and they pick up on a Friday and Saturday night when things are a bit busy, where people are waiting on the rank. And on, I think it was the August bank holiday weekend, officers and a team of people were out there patrolling and monitoring, and therefore trying to protect our taxi drivers and their livelihood. I thank that very much for that. So there are still challenges for taxi drivers earning a livelihood and ensuring that we've got a viable service, but I thank all involved for the work being done.
Thank you very much. Are there any more comments? Thank you, Councillor Hill.
Yes, in item 4, it says officers stated that the most common. Sorry, is it not off?
Yeah, it is on, I think.
It says officers stated that the most common causes of accidents is something Lichfield District Council can tackle themselves, including cold homes resulting in 5,000 deaths a year. I'm not sure that's all in this region, but it says, is the chair going to, or have they already been involved with officers to assess the impact on vulnerable elderly residents due to the winter fuel allowance being withdrawn on July 29th, 2024?
What?
And that was just 5 days after the date of the regulatory meeting.
That nice. I don't know, Councillor Evans, if you answer. So I think it's not 6,000 people on in Lichfield, is it? Or 5? No. Sorry, Councillor Evans.
We will continue to look at, but we couldn't dictate the dates that these things were going to happen. So when we actually met with the committee, that was the decisions that were made.
It was just reassurance that I would like that it's going to be considered going forward. I realise that it came after the event, but just the reassurance it will be looked at going forward. That's all.
Yeah,
Thank
okay,
you.
yeah, but yes, heating in homes, yeah, sure. I think that's going to be kept under consideration. Right, so can we then take the minutes of the Regulatory and Licensing Committee as approved, received and adopted? Thank you. Right, we come then to agenda item 11, financial procedure rules. Councillor Strachan is going to speak on this item.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. Before I start, can I make a point of thanking Councillor Ball for his reflection in the opening of the meeting, which I thought was truly beautiful. So thank you, Councillor Ball. This is hopefully a fairly simple and technical paper just to start off. All of our policies and procedures are reviewed on a regular basis to ensure they're fit for purpose and are up to date. And as updated, they're brought through the relevant committees, which generally is the Audit Committee, and then presented to Council. This paper went to audit in July, and I'm very grateful for their input, which we have tried to incorporate in the paper that's before us tonight. We are always going to need financial procedure rules, so I hope I can dispense with most of the background element of the paper and that the justification for them goes without saying. Members, the changes are tracked in blue within the report, and the majority of those are now to reflect the division of the former Audit and Standards Committee into its two separate entities, to reflect the current governance structure within the Council, and to remove reference to the coronavirus regulations of 2020, which are now mercifully obsolete for these purposes. Now that Lichfield West Midlands Traded Services is live and trading, we also wish to expressly state that these rules encompass the dealings of that company as it's a wholly owned entity of this council. Where members may find a little more interested in the paper is where we've made changes to write-off approval limits. The responsibility for those limits lies with Anthony, our Section 151 Chief Finance Officer, and his recommendation you will see at subparagraph 4.25 of the rules. And the proposals are simply to introduce a lower write-off approval limit, which is to be delegated to the Revenue Benefits and Corporate Debt Service Manager. That is to avoid the weight of the number of proposals being presented to leadership team where it previously lived, and also to avoid the Chief Finance Officer being too involved with operational matters as opposed to strategic matters, which was raised relatively recently by our external auditors. The remainder of those limits are unchanged. To aid in the governance and the resilience of that proposal, and it was raised at the Audit Committee, the Finance team undertakes to provide quarterly updates to me as the Cabinet member, but also to the Audit Committee as they requested. I do stress this isn't reinventing the wheel. This mechanism existed informally some time ago with a former audit chair and is simply being reinstated now on a more formal basis. I hope the proposals meet with the approval of Council and I beg to move the recommendations.
Very much. So if anyone would have any questions, it's what, nearly 60 pages, but it does indicate where the change. Yes, very important, very interesting, and it has pointed to where changes have been made. So, yeah, so we can, so you're is someone seconding? Is there any question? Yeah.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Marshall is seconding. Do you have a question? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I second the recommendations. I'm delighted to do so as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I think Councillor Ball has a question or a point.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Strachan for his kind words. Items 3.14 and 3.15. I certainly welcome that was highlighted in blue because it was easier when you skim through to see what you need to pay attention to. I welcome the fact that we're delegating some to the manager level, but I just wonder whether £250 is perhaps too low, but if it's been reviewed by the Audit Committee and they were happy with it, that seems acceptable. But I know from my own business experience, something like 500 might be more appropriate. And perhaps that's something that Council, the Cabinet member, would take into account when it's next reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll gladly keep it under review.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other points or questions? Okay, so it says here, following any debate, we haven't had a great, but is everyone in favour of this? Yep. Anyone against? No. Okay. Thank you. Abstentions? No. Okay. Right, then I thank you very much. And then agenda item 12 is the annual Treasury Management Report, also Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, Chair. Generally at this stage in the cycle, I make a report on the Council's compliance with all of our Treasury management and prudential indicators, but with very little actual flesh on the bones. And so this time we've added a bit more detail that you generally find in the scrutiny in the Cabinet reports to hopefully give Council some comfort in how we've been compliant with those indicators in order that you can approve the recommendation. So the first reassurance that I can give is that Council started the financial year in a strong financial position and remained in that position after 12 months. We are in the process as a Council of transitioning from planning on projects to delivery of projects, and so we're confident that given that resilience, we can see them through to their conclusion. You'll see that I report a £7.2 million underspend on the capital programme. This is largely due to planned capital projects not coming forward within the previous financial year. And the most significant of those, just to draw Council's attention to, is the cinema development, where we underspent by 2.9 million. The projects at the top of Bakers Lane, which is 1.6 million, and the Street Hay Community Centre. I will reassure Council that all three of those projects remain Council priorities. It's simply the case they'll be delivered in a later financial year. Chair, you'll also see capital receipts being £2.6 million below forecast, which is once again due to the delay on sale of Venture House and on the delay in the land transfer at the top of the precinct on Bakers Lane. But we did fund fewer projects from capital receipts within the last financial year because there were other more appropriate funding routes that were, for example, restricted on use or time sensitive, and so they were used in preference rather than using our capital receipts. In terms of overarching capital, we have a little over £1 million outstanding on a Public Works Loan Board loan, which has 16 years to maturity, but that position is unchanged from the position last year, apart from the biannual payments. As a council, our historic prudence has meant that we hold significant usable reserves, and we're able to use those to fund our capital financing requirement. We are borrowing from those reserves to contribute £5 million towards the new leisure centre as we move towards the delivery phase of that. But we're also in a position to contribute £500,000 to the cinema project from internal borrowing, and you'll see those expressed in some detail at Appendix B of my report. We also propose to fund the new waste fleet, which I know will excite a number of members via a contract hire agreement, as per the previous agreement, which had worked very well for us as a council. And the advice that we have from the Chief Finance Officer is that that level of external borrowing anticipated would be affordable, prudent and sustainable. And I use all three of those words in their accounting terms rather than general parlance. You'll see our investments expressed in summary at paragraph 3.21 of the report, and members will see that as at the financial year end, we held £46.3 million in investment reserves. Of this, just under £6 million is available as general reserve, and 26.7 is earmarked to bring forwards our ambitions in the coming years. I've referred briefly to internal borrowing. £746,000 is currently being used for that and will be replaced in the fullness of time. So far as the current location of those funds goes, they're not merely lying around, but they are being used both in money market funds and also strategic investments. Across the 4 strategic investment funds, we are currently showing a book loss of £987,000, but we set up at the very outset a reserve to manage volatility on those, which currently stands at £1.4 million, so they are in surplus. You may recall, members, I reported to Council, I think on the anniversary meeting 12 months ago, that there is a ending of the IFRS 9 override, and that may affect how we publish those accounts. The advice is that they should still be a long hold, and we still have instant access to them, and they'll be deployed as and when we need them. The advice that we've received from our financial advisors is that our drawdown, if we choose to make it, does not have to be immediate. And so it does mean that we have access to significant liquid assets as and when we need them, which aids our financial resilience. Finally, and it's the only matter that's technically on the table before us this evening, I confirm we have complied with all prudential and local indicators across the financial year. Chair, while there are likely to be challenges ahead with some changes in local government finance, including potential shocks that we anticipate in the forthcoming funding settlement, I am confident that Lichfield District Council remains a financially resilient, well-run, and is able to deliver our forthcoming projects very well as we come forward. I move the recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. At the risk of being repetitious, I'm delighted to second the recommendation. Thank you.
And I think Councillor Powell, I thought had a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, a nice detailed report there, Councillor Strachan, as always. Just one thing, can you give us reassurance that further slippage will not be allowed on capital projects? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Yes, I can. The substantial slippage relates to the cinema and the top of Baker's Lane. I understand that works will be starting on that site within the next couple of weeks, and so that capital project will not be slipping beyond this financial year, and we are committed to pressing those forwards as quickly as we can, partly to avoid additional cost, but also because, frankly, we've been planning this for a long time, and it's time we got on and did it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay. Can I ask then if we willing to agree that the recommendation that we accept this? Thank you. No one's against or abstained. No. Yeah. Thank you very much. Right, then we give chance to get the next block of papers. It's Councillor Strachan again on item 13, the medium-term financial strategy updates.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully members are aware that we plan our budgets in great detail, but occasionally some new changes crop up within the year which require council approval, and there are 3 such changes contained within this report that I seek council's approval for. The first relates to the property held at numbers 29 to 33 Levitts Field. This was previously occupied by Cases or Citizens Advice of South East Staffordshire under a long lease. They have now moved within our own building, and that lease has been extinguished. The council has no current plans for the asset. To reassure council, given some questions that were asked before this came to the cabinet report stage, it is fully converted for use as offices, and to use it as temporary accommodation, which was mooted by a couple of members, would be impractical given the scale and cost of the renovation that would be required. It would be economically completely impractical. We have received an offer to buy the property valued at £250,000. It has been accepted by Cabinet. It meets the market value of the property, and I propose council approval to formally receive the funds and allocate it to the Strategic Properties Reserve. Secondly is that councils, as we've recently discussed, will shortly be required to carry out food waste collections. This is long expected, and we've been planning for it already. The proposal is that a new project be added to the capital programme to a value of 1.7 million to implement food waste collections. This is funded fully by government grant as a new burden, which is met from the Section 31 New Burdens Grant. Our share of that is a little over 1.1 million, but as we are the holders of the Joint Waste Service, we have to place the full value on our capital programme to incorporate Tamworth's share. And so that is the second element of my proposal. Finally, and I'm delighted to confirm this part, is the commitment of a further £169,000 to the Disabled Facilities Grant budget. And if you'll give me some latitude on that, it's due to a larger grant being received from the Better Care Fund. Cabinet has already resolved to accept it. However, council approval is required because it increases the total budget of that to a little over 1.2 million. Since taking the service in-house, we have seen the significant improvement in delivery, and I'm very pleased to see that additional funding to carry out valuable and much needed modifications. Chair, Councillor Evans referred at the outset of the meeting to the need to process applications promptly. I am advised by officers that the backlog is now entirely cleared, and one of the key challenges that we're encountering now is actually the availability of tradespeople to carry out the approved works. It's not perfect, but it does represent a significant improvement, and it's far better than people in need sitting in a long approvals backlog. I really, genuinely, Chairman, I know that Mr. Rowbottom's in the meeting. I cannot speak highly enough of the improvements that have been made to this project, and I do commend the entire team who've made it what it is. Chair, I move recommendations 2.1 through 2.3 standing in my name. I am aware that this is a financial resolution of the council and seek officer advice as to whether a named vote is required.
Do we need a named vote? No, we're fine. So we're approving three things: Levitts Field, the waste collection, food waste collection, and the Disabled Facilities Grant. Do we have a second, Councillor Marshall? We'll take your word.
Yes, Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm happy to uphold the principle of déjà vu and second this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So all those in favour? Okay, I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Strachan. So now we come, because of this complicated item at the end, we're doing questions earlier than usual. So we now come to item 14, questions. We've got the questions and the answers. I think nearly all the answers on the sheet. The first one is Councillor Darren Ennis to Councillor Smith. Yeah. So do you have a supplementary, Councillor?
I do, Chair. Thank you. Thank you very much for your reply. We in Burntwood were kind of hoping that the new skateboard park would be built as swiftly as the old one was knocked down. You've put in the reply that 9 months might seem like a lot of time. It is a lot of time for a site that we own. 6 months, but 6 months to this point, they're not going to be completed for 9, and trying to build outside in the winter, I'd be lucky if 9 months is more like going to be 10 or 11. Bearing all this in mind, we have our own skill base within the council. We also have LWMTS, who have already got a proven record in delivering for this council, excellence and speed, which is important in this. I'd like to know why we decided to go down the route of microsports rather than looking internally or via our trading services.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. I too had the same frustrations as you with the time taken. Yeah, and I'll just point out to this council that it wasn't this council that knocked down the old skate park. So that wasn't down to us. But we did, however, with us and with the town council in Burntwood, I hasten to add, get together to sort out a solution, which we did. I think the initial answer spells out kind of why it took so long. And again, I wish it was sooner, but it wasn't. So there we go. In terms of Microsports, Microsports have delivered a number of things for us and will be delivering more. They started with the tennis courts in Beacon Park a long time ago, which has been really successful. They've done the climbing wall in Burntwood Leisure Centre, and they've also done the refurbishment of the tennis courts in Burntwood Leisure Centre. And they're due to do the paddle courts and the adventure golf and a number of other things in Beacon Park for us as well, and a number of initiatives. So they've got a proven track record with us. I'd like to say they've got a proven track record of doing things quickly, but your first question may argue against that. But I think relatively, genuinely, with all the things we have to check and do and the consultation we have to do, and then the small redesign, I think the 6 months is excellent, and I do have full faith in Microsports to do the job.
Okay, thank you. The second question is Councillor Ashton to the Leader of the Council. The answer. Do you have a supplementary question?
I thank the Leader for his answer to my question. I would like to emphasise that I think that any expansion of the board should be as broad as possible, while, as he says, keeping it to a manageable size. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Pullen, do you have anything to add to that? Or...
No, I thank Councillor Ashton for his comments and wholeheartedly concur with him.
Okay, thank you. Question 3 is Councillor Galvin to Cabinet Member for Operational Services, Parks and Waste. I think that's. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Galvin?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. No supplementary question. Just thank the member of the Cabinet for his answer, and just offer my continued support with this issue. And just let him know I have been approached by residents of the ward who are quite keen to see this go ahead as well now. So just let you know.
Thank you very much. The next question is Councillor Benyon to the Cabinet Member for Housing Local Plan. That's Councillor Sylvester Hall, is it? So, oh no, it's Councillor Farrell. Oh, 2 Councillor Mayor. Sorry if I'm just rambling. Councillor Benyon, do you have a supplementary?
I have some supplementary information, which I think is important.
No, that's not a question. You have to put it as a question.
Well, I can put it as a question. There will be a question at the end, but it needs a little bit of introduction. Firstly, yes, it was obvious that I was aware that this isn't a district council jurisdiction, because it's central government jurisdiction, which is actually implicit in the question. But it seemed to me the only way to bring it to councillors' notice was by putting forward a question, because this is something that clearly affects the residents of Lichfield District and the parishes in Lichfield District. But I have managed to get, there is a question, yes. I have managed to get the agencies involved to agree in principle to a meeting for elected representatives. So the only question I have is if I invite councillors to that meeting, particularly portfolio holders and the ward members that represent Elford. There's only 2 wards affected. The other one is the ward that in which Elford lies. So will those members be willing to come along to a meeting that I'm organising with the agencies concerned for elected members?
Thank you. Yeah, I've also noticed it says the Cabinet Member for Housing and Local Plan and Party.
Yep. It's a new bit of my portfolio, Chair. Thank you.
That's your new portfolio. Okay.
The answer to your question is I will be there. I don't know about the rest. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. So we're going to put pressure on. Okay, thank you very much. Question 5 is from Councillor Braga to the Cabinet Member for High Street and Economic Development. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Braga?
Yes, thank you for the answer for the first part. That's appreciated. And as for the second part, the question is, could you talk to them, please? I think it would be a great improvement for visitors to the area and indeed residents to have have the same system and charges in the adjacent car parks.
That's councillor Holland, isn't it?
Oh, thank you, councillor Bragger.
Right, okay, right. That's non-committal, isn't it? But anyway, and then again, it's councillor Bragger to the leader of the council and the cabinet member for visitor economy, etc. On the shared prosperity funds, which have a supplementary on that.
No, just thank you for the answer.
Okay. Then, right, then we have a question from councillor Paul Taylor to the cabinet member for community engagement on policing. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do, Chair. Thank you. Thank you to the cabinet member for his response. I recently attended the Police, Fire and Crime panel in Councillor Robertson's stead and took the opportunity to put a very similar question to the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner. He responded that he was not concerned about the lack of stability in leadership teams in the police through our district, and indeed tried to play it off as being a positive thing in that every time a new leader took a role, it was an opportunity for us to renegotiate and rediscuss policing in our area. Does he, like me, find that response unsatisfactory?
Okay, that wasn't a question either, was it? But never mind. Yeah, yeah.
Chairman,
yeah,
Chair, I think you've alluded to the fact that it wasn't, and to be honest, I don't think it's appropriate either.
Okay, right, we'll move on then. Question 8 from councillor Norman to the cabinet member for housing and local plan, not party, local plan.
Yes, please. I'm grateful
Do you
for
have
the
a supplementary question? Do you have a supplementary question following
yeah.
the answer?
Is it me? Right, all I want to do is this, to ask the cabinet member, is he aware that another case is the now closed Burnwood Health and Wellbeing Centre, which was granted planning permission in 2008 for 3 years, in 2011 for a further year, and in 2019 for a further 5 years, ending on the 30th of September this year? That's the question.
Yeah, that's a question. So yes or no, I guess.
Which one? I am now. Yes, thank you. I'll look into that for you. Cheers.
Right. Yeah, but yes, he's going to look into. Question 9 is councillor Evans about Redwood Park, and do you have a supplementary, councillor Evans?
Yes, Chair, I'm pleased that this is being looked at because it is an important issue. And I'm also pleased that more councillors are being involved because we frequently ask about this kind of thing. And so we need to know exactly what is happening. So my supplementary question is, do we have a rough timescale? I know we can't be dead on when things are going to happen, but is there a rough idea of when this might happen?
Do you have a response? I think it's you, isn't it? I think it's councillor White, that's it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, councillor Evans. The short answer is that we want to get this right, and Beacon Park is the first of our objectives, and we're working very closely now to see how that rolls out before we go full steam ahead with the model that we've anticipated. So consequently, I can't give you a definite time, but it's in our interest and it's our desire to make it as quickly as feasibly possible. But I will keep you updated on the progress, as I will with all other ward councillors as well.
No, thank you. We'll get to know what vision statements are as well. Right, so I think that concludes item 14. We now move on to item 15, the sale of land on Birmingham Road, St John Street site, Birmingham Road, St John Street site, Lichfield. And perhaps we should just say we may be going into confidential matters on this. So we'll perhaps call on Councillor Smith to speak first of all on this item, and then we'll see how it goes. But remember that commercial considerations will be confidential. So perhaps indicate if you want to talk furthermore in the confidential sections. But call on Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as you quite rightly say, some of the things we want to talk about may go into confidential, so we'll just have to monitor that as we go along and then move into confidential as we need to. This report, I think, brings us exciting news that we are now moving forwards on what we call Zone 1 of the BRS site. I call it Kenning's Corner. So for everyone in the room, that's the bit beyond the current hoardings, where the current temporary council car park is sited. What this discusses tonight is, to be quite clear, is the sale of Zone 1 only. So that's the bit beyond those hoardings. We're not discussing the rest of the site. This is purely the sale of the land to move that forwards. The sale land will be used for other initiatives, both on this site and elsewhere in the district. For example, Chair, the report notes that we'll be able to use over £1.2 million for projects that are part of the Burntwood Master Plan. We will also be able to use some of the money to establish the new linear park. That will be the wide expanse of public open space that will run from the railway station all the way through to the new plaza in front of the cinema. So right through that BRS site. So we'll be able to use £2 million from that development to build that as soon as we possibly can. Maybe not within 6 months, Councillor Ennis. So, Chair, who we're selling to and why? We are selling to a development company with a track record of over 25 years of creating sustainable residential and commercial developments. In Appendix C of the report, you will have seen some examples of the developments they have completed. Section 3.11 to 3.15 gives some more detail on those developments. Of all the purchase offers we had for that land, and there were many of them, which is great news, the design offering of CB Collier submission was heads and shoulders above the others. And I'm talking in terms of the look and feel and how it fits in with that site on that gateway to our city. If you check Appendix B, you will have seen the designs that they are offering to do and have committed to, not just offering, committed to. We are talking just over 100 residential units with a small amount of overground and mainly underground parking with it. So the parking will be part of the deal. As members will know, we created a strict design code for this site, not just that Kenning's Corner, but the entire BRS site. And given where it is and the location and the other buildings around it and the entrance from the station, we felt that was the right thing, the correct thing to do. This will ensure that we have everything correct for the surrounding environment. I hope you'll agree with me that from what you've seen from the Appendix B, the CB Collier offering will achieve that goal. So, what checks have we done on CB Collier to ensure our confidence that they have the capability to build out this scheme to the specification we have all agreed to? There have been a number of checks and references done around CB Collier to give us confidence on their capabilities. As well as the case studies referred to above, our 151 officer, Anthony Thomas, has done a number of checks on them and has confidence in their ability to deliver. These include, but not exclusive to, a company check by Dun & Bradstreet, letters from their auditors, and other items mentioned both in Anthony's attachment and in the report itself. On your desks before you came in the room, we placed an attachment, a letter from Anthony Thomas giving his rationale, the due diligence done, and his confidence in CB Collier to deliver this deal. Chair, in addition to the checks performed above, I also want to highlight to members that we have a safety net in place in terms of a buyback clause. This is detailed in the report, but essentially it means that less expenses if the scheme as specified in the spec has not come to fruition in an agreed amount of time scale, which I think is 24 months in the report. We will be able to, us as a council will have first refusal to buy back that land, less the cost of the deal. This is a safety net to ensure that in the likely event that CB Collier do have any development issues, which by the way, any developer can have in the real world, that we have the ability and power to effectively start again and get that land back. The details of this clause can be found in section 3.21 of the report. Finally, Chair, I would just like to add that we need to remember here that we are not investing money in a company or taking any financial risk in an investment in a company. We are selling land and getting a capital receipt for it. If for whatever reason CB Collier cannot buy the land, we don't sell it. And if for whatever reason they can't deliver the scheme within the time of the buyback clause, we buy it back. I very much hope that members agree with the report and vote to sell this zone, to not only go ahead with this zone of the scheme, as well as the developments happening with the cinema and the plaza at the other end at the same time, but we also have the capital to start projects for the Burntwood Master Plan and build a linear parkway and other projects we want to do within our district. Chair, I so propose, and we'll take questions as they come along. Thank you.
Got Councillor Pullen and then Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor
It probably comes as no surprise, having been involved in what feels like every T that has been crossed and I that has been dotted throughout the process. I very much welcome Councillor Smith's report and would like to second that and reserve my right to reply. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Pullen, having spent the last 5 or 6 years chairing the City Centre Master Plan task group, trying always to do that in a non-political way, which is what for the most part, with one notable exception, but moving on. I think that we have here at last a proposal that will work, that will be useful, that the community can accept. However, we still have some reservations about it. Some of that I think we'll need to take in closed session because they refer to some of the documents that are still on the confidential papers. But in the main, we think this is a good scheme. We support it. But we developed, I want to say a few thanks to the Chief Executive, to the Chief Finance Officer as well, to John Smith on major projects for all the work they've been doing to bring us to this point. We have got the design code, which will make sure that this happens in the appropriate way. I also want to thank my shadow cabinet member here on my left, the Councillor Darren Ennis, who's been doing a lot of work to try and dig deeper into the issues here so that we're confident that this isn't just about selling the land, it's about getting the job done, which is a major concern, which we can address more fully in the confidential section. But a disappointment that really has been today that a lot of these loose ends have been beginning to tide up. And it's disappointing that it's only today we've had that briefing note from Anthony Thomas put in front of us this evening. All of this could have been done weeks ago if there'd been more liaison with Councillor Ennis on the details beforehand. He sent an email, I think, to the leader on the 3rd of October. It was only today that the beginnings of those answers began to come out. So I think it's important, looking forward, that we act constructively and supportively with each other. I have some concerns about the heads of terms. There are lots of blanks there that's still to be filled in. And I'd like to suggest in a positive gesture, reaching across the chamber, that we involve Councillor Ennis in the finalising of those, as well as the cabinet member himself, because I think that we need to build on experience that we've got around this chamber, not just assume all the experiences in one part of the chamber. And I think if we'd done that earlier, we might have been in a more productive way to move this forward more constructively in open session. But unfortunately, because that hasn't happened, we have to move into the confidential session. And I'm also grateful that most of this debate will be in public domain, because I think the people need to know that we're being open and honest about this, that we're giving this due scrutiny. If we'd had this come to an overview and scrutiny committee a few weeks ago, we might have been able to, again, bottom out some of these issues that we're concerned about. But that, none of that withstanding, I think it's a good scheme and we really would like to support it, but we do need to have answers to a few of those questions in confidential session. Thank you.
The next, I've got 6 people down, I think, to speak. Councillor Trent was the next.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 quick comments from me, which I can make by reference to the Create Streets report. They relate to the density of what's proposed and also to the permeability and the walkability of what's proposed. So the first point, Zone 1, the bidder proposes 106 residential units, which I would suggest is a significant number for that corner of Birmingham Road site. Many Lichfield residents might agree. We're informed that the proposal meets the design code, and Councillor Andrew Smith has mentioned the design code. So the reason I wanted to go by reference to the Create Streets report is it does talk about there being a gentle density to what is created in terms of the development. So I just wanted members to consider very carefully whether 106 dwellings on that corner of the Birmingham Road site is gentle density. I perhaps shouldn't ask rhetorical questions, but that's my point on density.
Thank you very much.
The second point was about permeability and walkability. And again, you can see it there on the first page of the Create Streets report, which says that the design should allow pedestrian permeability and the new development must encourage walking and cycling. Streets must prioritise pedestrians and cyclists. So, Chair, I would ask, do the designs for Zone 1 do that? And we can see that there is an element at least of a gated design, particularly on St John's Street. I recognise, Chair, that a number of these points will have to be picked up in the planning process, and no doubt they will be given very careful scrutiny as we move through, excuse me, through that process. But the wider point I'm making there is it's essential, I'm sure we all recognise, that to strike the right balance between the density of this housing in Zone 1 and the availability of public realm. And on that latter point, I do support the linear park design. But in my view, it's so important, given that this is the gateway to our city, that we get that balance right and that neither Zone 1 or Birmingham Road site as a whole is overdeveloped. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marshall is next.
Thank you very much, Chair. As mentioned earlier, as the resident heretic, I want to say that I give this plan my unalloyed support. I think it's absolutely excellent. I think CB Collier have come forward with something which will be incredibly beneficial for the city of Lichfield. And on the subject of density, I think the highest density within Lichfield City exists in the Cathedral Close. The Cathedral Close is also an iconic location architecturally, and I think draws people from all over the country to walk around the cathedral. So in itself, high density is not a negative. I think it can be a positive, provided the design is correct. And I think what we have here with the work which has been done, and at this point, I'd really like to thank the chairman of the task group and his team for coming up with something so inspirational and so, I think, architecturally fantastic. It is the gateway to the city, and I think that what we have in front of us, or what we've had presented to us at 1 or 2 meetings in recent weeks, is something which will be a major benefit for Lichfield. And I draw attention to what's going on at the Angel Croft as well. There we have a very, very high quality development taking place, courtesy of Friel Homes. And I think this will complement that incredibly well. And Lichfield, I think, has come to a crossroads where we need to make sure that all the development taking place from now on is something of which we can be rightly proud. And who knows, in another 100 years or 150 years' time, people will be visiting this city and going away full of pride and thinking that Lichfield, all those years ago, because of the, if you like, the guidance of the councillors and the officers, got it just right. So density itself, I don't think is a problem. I think CB Collier and the team who've put this into a plan for us to look at should be commended. And I hope that there can be a very collaborative approach taken by members of this council, because we have something here which I think will create a wonderful legacy for the city of Lichfield going forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Norman.
Chair, I should say, sorry.
I think you were next.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure how long the site in question has been empty. I do know that it was being discussed even way back in 2000, either in this room or another room. It was being discussed at that particular time. What I don't want to do is, you know, in 10 years' time or 5 years' time, still discussing it and there being no action on it. It's always interesting when there's reference to the gateway. You can see that elsewhere, reference to the gateway of Lichfield, where the gateway was a car sales showroom. I'm not quite sure why that is nostalgic now, and people like to go back to that and not to the sort of housing that's being proposed in this this project. I understand that you can have a view that it's high density, but it doesn't look that way to me. It's not overburdening or anything like that. It just looks pretty. It looks pretty good. I mean, it's always sunny in these drawings, isn't it? But and I noticed they don't have crows flying above anymore like they used to. But it does look good. I do say it does look good, and the nature of the colours of that, if that gets through planning, will help to make that less of a overburdening image. There's been a number of launches over the years. We're getting very excited, and there'll be a big launch by the council, and then nothing happened. Marks and Spencer, wherever you go in any part of the country, Marks and Spencer always gets mentioned. We want a Marks and Spencer. We were saying that in Tamworth in the 60s. It is there now, admittedly, but only in recent times. But then Marks and Spencer's we had was a food shop, and even that abandoned the city. So, you know, let's just carried away here. We've had a number of launches, and then nothing has happened except you know, we're red faces, I think, afterwards. It is a shame that we didn't have the opportunity at the scrutiny committee to save all those emails back and forth about the questions, because due diligence isn't just for officers to do, it is also for elected members to do, and actually ask those questions, because even though we're not experts, and I'm almost an expert now on Dun and Bradstreet, having looked at the grocery, watched a few videos, but I'm no Jim Slater. Some people may know that name, and I can't just read a balance sheet like that. So I have to trust officers, and unfortunately, very fortunate in this district council, we do have Anthony Thomas as our section 151 officer. And so even though I need to ask him questions, it has been great to have that assurance from him and from the chief executive. As I say, I don't want to be discussing this in another 10 years' time, although I do want to see it scrutiny, the detail for at some point in the future, for the £2 million for a linear park and the realm. I think we ought to be able to have some say on that one and get into some detail on that. As far as I'm concerned, this is a scheme that's, yeah, it's don't be perfect. We all want, I mean, Burntwood, we just want shops. It's not possible. You have to have mixed development, and we had this planning committee recently. And in the case of Lichfield City, if you don't have housing, you don't have the funding to get the other things. So the reality is, we know as councillors, it may not be easy to sell outside, but this is at last working together, I believe, gives us the opportunity to make those changes that we've been wanting for some time. So for those few people that will come by train to Lichfield, they'll have a great view.
Yeah, I've got Councillor Ashton, I think, was next. Yeah, I'll come to.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a reservation which may seem like a minor technical point, but if it's not addressed fairly promptly, could actually scupper the scheme. One of the key selling points rather of this scheme is the parking facility. We're not going to have a whole lot of asphalt. We're going to have put cars underground. All well and good. And I'm sure it's a technical solution which can be solved. I've seen similar schemes on the internet. But my main concern comes with the use of electric vehicles. There will be no charging underneath the ground, which means a large proportion of the residents of this will not have home charging available to them. There's also substantial risk. Apparently, EVs do catch fire less often than hybrids or conventional cars, but a fire in an EV is a rather horrible thing.
And a fire involving 20 EVs stored underground could be very horrible. So I suggest that this be examined either at this stage of the process or examined very thoroughly in the pre-application when it comes to the planning officers. Otherwise, we are at risk of losing one of the key selling points of this. Because this, to me, is a very attractive scheme in that the car parking is underground, it's out of sight, it's convenient for the residents. But this small technical point could be a sticking point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cox, I think, wanted to say how much you liked it.
Thank you, Chair. I stand to endorse the selling of the land and concur with, because he must have seen my notes or what I was thinking. Councillor Norman is absolutely right. It is time. And Councillor Norman was on this authority when it was first muted. I joined the authority in 2003 and it was flag waving and everything else. I'm still a young man, yes. But the point is, I think that we concur with, this scheme is what I would consider the nearest and best we've ever had. In the past, we've had schemes that have been grandeur, couldn't be delivered. We've had those that have been optimistic and haven't been delivered. And I'm going to use the word now, this is reality. I think we're here. And I can say that with justification. And I warmly welcome it wholeheartedly. And not just by the heart, but by the head as well, because this one is a good scheme.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you. Firstly, as part of the papers that we've received, the wider proposals for the Birmingham Road site have been made available. And I know, as Councillor Smith has said, we're not voting on that tonight, but I do have some severe reservations about that. And I know those are held by a number of members in this council about the number of units, 300 plus units across the whole of the scheme, the reduced amount of public open space, the unimaginative block design. I really do feel that Lichfield can do better. But when turning now to Zone 1, which is the matter of the vote tonight, and on behalf of my group, we do have some reservations. As Councillor Trent has said about the number of units, the 106 units, there is obviously no affordable housing on that part of the site. And also about the gated community. And I just asked Councillor Smith for his views on this. It just seems here in the centre of Lichfield, in the centre of our community, it just doesn't feel that that's consistent with creating an inclusive community if part of the housing is gated. I do accept we need to get the Birmingham Road site moving. And so overall, we have reservations. We can see the positives, but accept that we do need to make progress here on a scheme that has stalled for far too long.
Thank you. Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, Chair. Can I thank members for trying to keep as much as possible in public session before we move on? And I recognise that Councillor Ball does have some points that he's going to wish to raise in private session, which I look forward to hearing. Chair, starting with the flow of how this debate has gone. Firstly, my experience of lawyers is that nothing accelerates progress and focuses minds like a forthcoming hearing. And this meeting is precisely that. I'm in no way an apologist for the council's legal advisors, but I would proffer that by way of explanation for the late receipt of some of the documents that are before us this evening, which I was glad to read through the course of the day. Dealing with Councillor Trent's observations, the presence or non-presence of gates is, with respect, not on the table for us tonight. This is simply on the disposal of Zone 1 and setting up any ancillary matters. And while he and I may differ on our aesthetic views, this is frankly a matter for the Planning Committee. The same applies to the parking issues, where the safety of that will be subject to the resolutions and the expert advice that the Planning Committee will receive, although I agree it's a very attractive selling point. And dealing with the linear park, the recommendation tonight simply sets out the mechanism by which that is delivered and does not deliver it itself. We are not the Planning Committee tonight. We cannot make that decision. However, I do find it's actually a very attractive route. For me, I think I disagree with Councillor Trent. The density is acceptable for apartment style living over 3 stories with a building with quite a significant footprint. This, for me, is attractive city centre living, as I've heard expressed by Councillors Marshall and Cox. And while we're dealing with electronic vehicles, I've never been more glad to note that Councillor Marshall had already spoken on it. Chair, Create Streets here have set an impressive design code for this gateway site. This proposal, if it is built out in that style, and I trust the resolutions and the heads of term will be sufficient to hold them to that, this builds out that design code, frankly, and then some for me. This is sensitive to the heritage assets that are in the area and far preferable to the car dealership, the hoardings, or the pile of rubble that we've seen there over the last few years. I think I've understood Councillor Norman's observations properly when he says the time has come for us to trust our experts and just get on and deliver it. Chair, subject to any major pitfalls that we may hear in confidential session, I will be delighted to support this recommendation tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got Councillor Braga. And does anybody else feel moved to speak before the confidential? So perhaps we'll make this the last country.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I welcome this. It's obviously well overdue to have the development there, and housing will obviously support the existing shops in the city rather than having more shops that don't need it. So that is good, and the money going to the linear park and the Burntwood plan. However, we were told in the briefing that this is high quality housing, and some of the principles of the development are controlled in the contract of sale. And so I would hope that in future phases, the contract of sale will include high quality, affordable housing, social housing, essential worker housing, in the way that we're controlling it in the contract of sale here. Thank you.
Thank you. So taking advice here, shall we now then move into confidentials? Yeah. So where's my thing? Yeah. So I'm required to read out the following. That as publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be transacted, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which would involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12. having a name, better just to vote. Are we just voting? We don't know, no, nothing fancy. Yeah. Yeah, so right. Okay, sorry, right, we're back on stream now. Okay, so we've had our confidential discussion and we're now ready to vote on this. Sorry? Are you
Chair, I was just seconding and I'd reserved my right to reply, that's all, so I just wanted to exercise that right.
Oh, go on then, okay, right. Councillor Pullen is going to say a few words.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to say, as I said earlier on, been involved intimately in every detail of this for well over a year. What has come forward is a brilliant scheme that resonates with the architectural history of Lichfield, whilst actually addressing a housing need on a brownfield site right opposite the train station. This is the right thing for this council to approve tonight. Chair, I'd like to just to sum up before we move to the vote, just by quoting Councillors Ray and Councillor Trent, actually, back from a press release a few years ago. The original plans envisaged around 100 townhouses and flats on the site. There is a very large demand for housing in Lichfield, so let's get this building started. Thank you, councillors.
Okay, right. So the proposal is to sell the land on the Birmingham Road, St John Street site to CB Collier. All those in favour? Yeah, so me and him are in favour. Is anyone against? Are there some abstentions? Right, okay, so there's 6 abstentions. Yeah, I think, is it 6 or 5? Yeah. Okay, I think that concludes the business for today. I'll see you in December. Goodbye.